Guys, there's quite the difference between being lucky and not knowing it and being lucky and knowing it. Today, with these guns, I'm lucky, and believe me, I know it. Guys, I'm pretty much a fan of any gun out there. If you can put a cartridge in it, pull the trigger, and it's going to go bang, I'm a fan. I want to show you some of the guns that I'm really fond of. That whole Cold War era, after the World War II, that's a really interesting time because World War II gave us a time to really decide what doesn't work and what does work, but not really a time to actually work on those things. You had to build guns. You couldn't design guns. But everyone was taking note and realized what did and didn't work. That's where I picked these 5 rifles from. That Cold War era after World War II and into the 70s and 80s. These guns pretty much redefined firearms as they are seen today. We've got your favorites here, obviously. Your HK G3, your FAL, M16, M14, AK-47. Now, what I'll be doing through this whole series is we're going to be running a series of videos chronicling all of these firearms right here. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be calling these by their main name, their standard name. I realize, especially these guys over here, that there's other variants that are so very similar, but they're called different things. It may matter what company made them. It may matter what year they were manufactured in as to what the actual name it goes by. But that's what I'm going to do is just to keep things simple. I'm not going to go through that. Now, we will detail a little bit on the history of each one of these, so we may touch on that then. But for the most part, we're going to be calling them G3s, FALs, M16, M14s, and AK-47. It's going to make it easier for all of us. In my humble opinion, the finest box-fed semi-automatic rifle ever designed, to date still, is the FN-FAL. The reason why I'm holding this particular rifle right now is because this rifle pretty much is touched in history with almost all these other rifles. For example, the G3. The Germans wanted this. This is what they wanted. The problem was Belgium, because they had been invaded a couple of times by Germany already prior to that time, were not willing to sell the patent and all of the copyright to Germany and let them build their own FN-FALs. So Germany basically took their toys and went and decided they would make their own rifles, which they ended up with eventually the G3. Now, how's the M14 historically tied to the FN-FAL? Hey, we wanted this too. The U.S. Army wanted the FN-FAL. The problem was the guys calling the shots with the U.S. Army didn't want it. They wanted an American-made rifle, which ended up being the M14. We even went so far to get Britain to promise to side with us to make the NATO round, the .308 round that we so desperately wanted, and in return we would actually say, yes, we'll take the FN-FAL. We wanted this as our battle rifle. We reneged on that. The U.S. reneged on that. We got our .308 round that we so desperately wanted. However, we decided not to go with the FN-FAL, and we went with the M14, which is somewhat of an improved version of the M1 Garand by Mr. Garand himself. So while we did wind up with a really nice rifle with the M14, we did not wind up with our first choice. And the M16, we all know it came right after the M14 and replaced it very quickly. The AK-47 is the only one that I can't really find anything tying back to the FN-FAL. But you know the Russians, they weren't going to want anything but everybody else wanted anyway, so they were going to design their own rifle to go to war with anyhow. Russians aren't going to play with us. Kind of like how the United States did. Guys, I had a blast out here today. Shooting these Cold War rifles is an amazing thing. There was a lot of history between these rifles right here. These 5 rifles changed a lot in terms of history and how the evolution of firearms in general took place in terms of the battle rifle. I gotta tell you folks, I hope you stay tuned for our Cold War rifle series. This is the first episode of it. I really just wanted to introduce you to the group of rifles. Now we're gonna break each rifle down and really talk about each one specifically in terms of its history, how it works, how it shoots, things of that nature. I hope you'll stay tuned and join us. This is a lot of fun. Again, a lot of people helped me get all these guns also. I got to give a shout out to Gator Guns in Sulphur, Louisiana. Very instrumental in getting all these guns in my hands in order for me to do this segment. But this is, by far, these are my favorite guns from that Cold War era. I know there's a lot out there. I know there's pistols and a lot of different rifles out there. These were the 5 that I'm most familiar with and that I prefer out of all of them. I know there's a lot of really good firearms out there and rifles out there. So maybe we'll do something on Cold War pistols next time. But yeah, definitely stay tuned, guys. Cold War rifle segment. Should hopefully have something else coming up, probably the next couple of weeks or something of that nature. And I'm looking forward to this, having a lot of fun doing this. It's a lot of fun.